Villa Tugendhat. Villa Tugendhat is a historical building in the wealthy neighborhood of Chernopole in Brno, Czech Republic. It is one of the pioneering prototypes of modern architecture in Europe and was designed by the German architect Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. Built of reinforced concrete between 1928 and 1930 for Fritz Tugendhat and his wife Greta. Mies' design principle of less is more and emphasis on functional amenities created a fine example of early functionalism architecture, a groundbreaking new vision in building design at the time. Mies used a revolutionary iron framework, which enabled him to dispense with supporting walls and arrange the interior in order to achieve a feeling of space and light. The floor area was unusually large and open compared to the average family home of the period, which, in addition of the various storage rooms, made the structure unique, if not confusing, to the visitors not used to such minimalism. The villa was exceptionally expensive for its time, considering the lavish materials, abnormal construction methods, and extraordinary new technologies of heating and cooling. The house was very advanced for a private residence, and while the overall cost was never known, estimates fall somewhere near 5 million Czech crowns. In 1930, that amount could have built at least 30 small family homes. The villa was used in 1992 for the formal signing that separated the country into a present-day Czech Republic and Slovakia, and since 1994 has been open to the public as a museum. Overall, the minimum and stable design became a hallmark in Mies' residential accomplishments. Kaufman House. The Kaufman House, or Kaufman Desert Halls, is a house located in Palm Springs, California that was designed by architect Richard Neuter in 1946. This 5-bedroom, 5-bathroom vacation house was designed to emphasize connection to the desert landscape while offering shelter from harsh climatic conditions. Large sliding glass walls open the living spaces and master bedroom to adjacent patios. Major outdoor rooms are enclosed by a row of movable vertical fins that offer flexible protection against sandstorms and intense heat. A combined living and dining space, roughly square, lies at the center of the house. While the house favors an east-west axis, 4 long perpendicular wings extend in each cardinal direction from the living areas. Thoughtful placement of larger rooms at the end of each wing helps define adjacent outdoor rooms, with circulation occurring from indoors and out. The south wing connects to the public realm and includes a carport and 2 long covered walkways. These walkways are separated by a massive stone wall and lead to public and service entries, respectively. This wing of the house is connected to the living space by a north-facing internal gallery and houses a master bedroom suite. To the west, a kitchen, service spaces, and staff quarters are reached by a covered breezeway. In the northern wing, another open walkway passes along an external patio leading to 2 guest rooms. The Kaufman house has gone through several owners after the Kaufmans owned the house, which led to the house to fall in disrepair and a lack of concern and preservation of the modern drawing. However, a couple that appreciated the 20th century modern homes restored the house back to its original luster with the help of Julius Schumann. The Kaufman house is now considered to be architectural landmark and one of the most important houses of the 20th century. Charles and Ray Eames House. Originally known as Case Study House No. 8, the Eames House was such a spatially pleasant modern residence that it became the house of the architects themselves. Charles and Ray Eames began designing the house in 1945 for the Case Study House program in Los Angeles Arts and Architecture magazine. Published and built, these houses had the focus of the use of new materials and technologies developed during World War II. The intention was for the house to be made of prefabricated materials that would not interrupt the site, be easy to build, and exhibit a modern style. The house was first sketched out by Charles Eames with fellow architect Eero Saarinen in 1945 as a raised steel and glass box projected out of the slope and spanning the entrance drive before cantilevering dramatically over the front yard. The structure was to be constructed entirely of off-the-shelf parts available from steel fabricators' catalogs. The importance given to lighting design, with the exterior arranged in this particular way, can be connected to Japanese influence. This attention to detail, however, did not hinder the aspect of displaying the idea prefabrication. The house was built largely of standard components such as the windows, which measure a standard width of 3 feet 4 inches. Contrast to the cold steel framing that forms the structure, the interior of the house is warm and confronting with its wood block floor and the soft light penetrating into each room throughout each day. Wooden staircases flowed effortlessly connecting the lower and upper levels. The use of natural materials on the interior brings residents closer to nature, giving the appearance of the house resting softly on the earth. A row of eucalyptus trees was also planted at the front that provide shade and blend parts of the house with outdoors. The Eames house is a beautiful continuation of space. The rooms are liberated, flowing into each another, even between floors through the double height spaces. Private and public spaces are not strictly divided. For example, the bedroom on the upper level overlooks the public living room, with a short terrace that connects the rooms. There are no major divisions other than separation of the 2 boxes, which still merge into one another with the courtyard. The house is an unrolling scroll of a modern painting that exemplifies the use of prefabricated materials to create beautiful, endless space. Unité de réhabilitation, Marseille. After World War II, the need for housing was at an unprecedented high. The Unité de réhabilitation in Marseille, France, was the first large-scale project for the famed architect Le Corbusier in 1947. Europe was still feeling the effects of the Second World War when Le Corbusier was commissioned to design a multi-family residential housing project for the people of Marseille that were dislocated after the bombings of France. Le Corbusier's idea of the vertical garden city was based on bringing the villa within a larger volume that allowed for the inhabitants to have their own private spaces, but outside of their private sector they would shop, eat, exercise, and gather together. By narrowing the units and allowing for a double height space, Corbusier is capable of efficiently placing more units in the building and creating an interlocking system of residential volumes. At each end of the unit there is a balcony protected by a brise soleil that allows for cross-ventilation throughout the unit, flowing through the narrow bedrooms into the double height space, emphasizing an open volume rather than an open plan. Unité de réhabilitation is one of Le Corbusier's most important projects, as well as one of the most innovative architectural responses to a residential building. So much so that the Unité de réhabilitation is said to have influenced the brutalist style with the use of beton brut concrete. Unité de réhabilitation has since been the example for public housing across the world. However, no venture has been successful, as it simply became the modular proportions that Corbusier established during the project. Nonetheless, Le Corbusier's first large-scale project has proven to be one of the most significant and inspiring. Schroeder House. The Rita Schroeder House in Utrecht was built in 1924 by Dutch architect Gerrit Rietveld for Mrs. Roos Schroeder and her 3 children. The facades are a collage of planes and lines whose components are purposely detached from and seem to glide past one another. This enabled the provision of several balconies. Like Rietveld's red and blue chair, each component has its own form, position, and color. Colors were chosen as to strengthen the plasticity of the facades. Surfaces in white and shades of grey, black window and door frames, and a number of linear elements in primary colors. There is little distinction between interior and exterior space. The rectilinear lines and planes flow from outside to inside, with the same color palette and surfaces. Even the windows are hinged so that they can only open 90 degrees to the wall, preserving strict design standards about intersecting planes, and further blurring the delineation of inside and out. The flexibility of the interior spaces and the obviously planar quality of the house both give it an edge that makes it distinguishable and unique on every level. What makes the Schroeder House an icon of the modern movement is its radical approach to design, the use of space, and the purity of its concepts and ideas as represented in the Distill movement. Its transformational quality of evenly matched spaces composed of independent planes perfectly met the goals of the Distill movement. Gropius House. The Gropius House was the family residence of noted architect Walter Gropius. Completed in 1938, the Gropius House was the first commissioned project in the United States for the famed architect. In Gropius's mind, keeping with the vernacular of the surround New England farmhouse aesthetic was a primary concern, while also introducing modern, mass-produced, prefabricated elements into the design as well. Yet while maintaining a connection with the tradition, Gropius imposes the modernist aesthetic on the local materials by painting the house a stark white, when combined with the tinted ribbon windows and the glass blocks appears to be, slightly Corbusian, foreign objects placed in the landscape. In regards to the interior of the house, Gropius did not take the New England architectural vernacular into consideration. Rather, the interior is a mix of fabricated pieces from the Bauhaus and furniture by Marcel Breuer. Similar to the work that was happening simultaneously in Europe, the house employs an open spatial organization that filters light throughout the house through the large windows. The Gropius house was home to Walter Gropius and his family until his death in 1969, which was then officially transferred back to the owner of the land, whom was so enthralled by Gropius and his work opened up her land to other architects to create similar establishments as Gropius. In year 2000, the house became a national landmark, which is testament to the influence of Walter Gropius's life work. Vieux-Savoie. Situated in Poissy, a small commune outside of Paris, Vieux-Savoie is one of the most significant contributions to modern architecture in the 20th century. Completed in 1929, Vieux-Savoie is a modern take on a French country house that celebrates and reacts to the new machine age. The house single-handedly transformed Le Corbusier's career as well as the principles of the international style. Vieux-Savoie's detachment from its physical context lends its design to be contextually integrated into the mechanistic industrial context of the early 20th century, conceptually defining the house as a mechanized entity. In response to his aspirations and admiration of mechanized design, Le Corbusier established the 5 points of architecture, which simply is a list of prescribed elements to be incorporated in design. These are: first, pilotis; second, flat roof tires; third, open plan; fourth, ribbon windows; fifth, free facade. At this point in Le Corbusier's career, he became intrigued by the technology and design of steamships. The simplistic, steam-lined result, born out of innovative engineering techniques and modular design, had influenced Corbusier's spatial planning and minimalistic aesthetic. Le Corbusier's family's first stating: "The house is a machine for living." This statement is not simply translated into the design of human-scaled assembly line. Rather, the design begins to take on innovative qualities and advances found in other fields of industry in the name of efficiency. Farnsworth House. The Farnsworth House was built between 1945 and 1951 for Dr. Edith Farnsworth. This single-story house consists of 8 eye-shaped steel columns that support the roof and floor frameworks, and therefore are both structural and expensive. In between these columns are floor-to-ceiling windows around the entire house, opening up the rooms to the woods around it. The windows are what provide the beauty of Mies' idea of tying the residence with its tranquil surroundings. His idea for shading and privacy was through the many trees that are located on the private side. Mies explained his concept in an interview about the glass pavilion, stating, "Nature, too, shall live its own life. We must beware not to disrupt it with the color of our houses and interior fittings. Yet we should attempt to bring nature, houses, and human beings together into a higher unity." Mies intended for the house to be as light as possible on the land, and so he raised the house 5 feet 3 inches off the ground, allowing only the steel columns to meet the ground and the landscape to extend past the residence. In order to accomplish this, the mullions of the windows also provide structural support for the floor slab. Although there were some problems with the maintenance of the house due to flooding and livability of the design that involved complaints about the poor ventilation of the interior as well as cost overturns, there is no doubt that the Farnsworth House is the essence of simplicity in its purest form. The brilliance in its artistic design became the inspiration of other works, such as Philip Johnson's Glass House. Villa Mairea. Villa Mairea is a villa, guest house, and rural retreat designed and built by the Finnish modernist architect Alvar Aalto for Harry and Mary Gulliksen in Noormarkku, Finland. The building was constructed in 1938 to 1939. Throughout his early studies for the villa, Aalto envisioned an L-shaped plan similar to that of his own house in Nicola, built in 1934 to 1936. There, the L shape distinguishes between the house proper and the integral studio. At Villa Mairea, it separates the family accommodation from that of the country house. Garden varies in cost by a combination of walls, fences, trellises, and the wooden sauna. The entrance opens into a small top lobby, from which another door straight ahead leads into an open hall positioned 4 steps below the main level. One enters on axis with a dining table beyond, but the axiality is determined by the asymmetry of a screen of wooden poles and a freestanding angled wall, which together define an informal anteroom between the living room and the dining room. The verticality of the columns existing throughout the house and posts found by the staircase mimic the sea of birch trees that surrounds the house. Aalto purposely makes each column different to avoid all artificial architectural rhythm. Fallingswater. Fallingswater, or the Kaufman Residence, is a house designed by architect Frank Lойд Райт in 1935 in a rural southwestern Pennsylvania for the family of Edgar J. Kaufman, owner of Kaufman's department store. The house was meant to complement the site while still competing with the drama of the falls and their endless sounds of clashing water. The power of the falls is always felt, not visually but through sound, as the breaking water could constantly be heard throughout the entire house. Fallingswater was the family's weekend home from 1937 until 1963, when Kaufman Jr. donated the property to the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy. In 1964, it was opened to the public as a museum. The house hosts more than 120,000 visitors each year. Fallingwater stands as one of Wright's greatest masterpieces, both for its dynamism and for its integration with the striking natural surroundings. Fallingwater has been described as an architecture through the force of Wright's organic philosophy. Wright's passion for Japanese architecture was strongly reflected in the design of Fallingwater, particularly in the importance of interpenetrating exterior and interior spaces, and the strong emphasis placed on harmony between man and nature. Fallingwater stands as one of Wright's greatest masterpieces, both for its dynamism and for its integration with the striking natural surroundings. Fallingwater has been described as an architecture through the force of Wright's organic philosophy. Wright's passion for Japanese architecture was strongly reflected in the design of Fallingwater, particularly in the importance of interpenetrating exterior and interior spaces, and the strong emphasis placed on harmony between man and nature.